Hi, I'm Dennis, and we're back with another maintenance and repair video. And today we're going to be working on the Tornador Z010 Classic. The problem here, it's not spraying liquid. Let's find out why. So there's only a few things that's going to keep this thing from spraying liquid. So let's go through them real quick. The first thing we want to do, I'm going to take the jar off. I want to inspect inside, make sure I don't have any dried out chemical, any dirt or debris that's found its way into the cup, which will clog the siphon tube. It's a CT500. At the bottom of this weight, there's a tiny screen. So the first thing you want to do is turn that thing upside down and look at it and make sure that it's not clogged. These are really hard to clog. If that's not clogged, go ahead and inspect the rest of the tube to make sure that it's not cracked or doesn't have any fatigue. This one looks like it's in really good shape. It's on there good and tight. Okay, trigger rebounds good. I'm going to take the air reverse switch, work that back and forth. We're going to look inside of that here in a minute. Okay, now just by looking at it this way, take a look at the inside of that cone. I mean, needless to say, it's got some wear and tear on it, but one thing I noticed, they're not cleaning the cone. And the best way to clean the cone out, when it gets dirty like that, is merely dunk it in a bucket of soapy water, pull the trigger a few times, let it rotate inside of the suds, and it'll clean this cone out. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I want to drag my finger through here, and I'll tell you, this is caked in here really heavily. And it's also grooved out the cone. Okay, so what's going to happen here is that when this starts to rotate like this inside of the cone, it'll start to groove this cone. Under high RPM, this weighted tube part here is going to get hung up inside of this cone and twist the inner liquid tube. So without a doubt, I need to replace that cone. And you know what? This weighted tube has seen its days. So we're going to replace that also. So I'm going to go with the Tornador CT200 maintenance kit. It's going to give me a new cone, a new weighted tube, and inside there somewhere is a little plastic washer. We want to make sure that we have that also. So let's put this thing in the vise and take it apart and see what we got. I'm going to start off with a 10 millimeter wrench. Box end will work on this because I can just slide it on like that, loosen it up. A lot of times I can take my fingers and twist that off. This comes right off. Okay, while I'm doing this, there's one thing I want to be aware of. Take this out real quick. I want to make sure that there's no thread tape or anything that's stuck in there after I pull off the weighted tube. So when I put the new weighted tube in, it's not going to have any debris or garbage in there. The washer is still good, so I'd keep that in my parts bench. You know, this weighted tube, it probably would work for a backup. You know, it's not fractured, it doesn't have any real issues outside it's worn badly. So I'm going to keep that just in case. Okay, I can see some problems here already. And it might be kind of hard for the camera to see this, but the inner liquid tube here, the CT600, you can see how it's twisted. And I was talking about that weighted tube getting twisted inside of the cone. That's what's happened here. Also, the end of this inner liquid tube, it's pretty well hammered. It's definitely got to be replaced. So, part replacement for that is the CT600. That's my inner liquid tube. Okay, obviously the inner liquid tube's been damaged. Let's get it out of there and see what we got. Put this in the vise. A couple ways you can get this out. I can take a 14 millimeter and come down here on the bottom and grab the inner liquid tube nut like this and loosen it. Or I like taking this, 11/16, and I can either take it on this top nut here. Okay, here it comes. Okay, now a lot of times replacing an inner liquid tube, if the inner liquid tube nut stays on the valve body, no problem. Just take your wrench, your 14 millimeter, and take it off. Now one thing on the air reverse switch, it's got two flat sides right here. I like this because I can take my wrench, put it on that flat side, come over with my 14 millimeter and take this off. Okay, still pretty snug on there. Okay. This is a pretty old tool. It's been around for a while, so sometimes these fittings can be a little stubborn. Okay, one thing about the inner liquid tube, you can't reuse it. You got to throw it away. If you look very carefully here at the factory, they use some type of epoxy that bonds this inner liquid tube in here so it doesn't come out. See, that's where the weak spot was right there. It broke. It's a good way to test it. Okay, now that I've got this out, I want to look inside and check the condition of inside the ball cock, so when I open and close this, I can see if I have any debris or anything. This one looks pretty good, but you know, I can see a little bit of right there. It just come out. I don't know if you saw it, but I want to make sure this is all clean and free. So it's opening and closing. I'm in good shape. Okay, let's take the inner liquid tube here. When you get it, it's going to look like, hey, that part's not going to fit my Tornador. It's that big red thing. That's nothing more than a straw that's going to protect the inner liquid tube from getting damaged. So you can take a single edge razor blade and trim that off. Okay, there we go. There's your new inner liquid tube. A little bit of a difference right there, okay? All right, this looks good, all right? Now what I want to do is I want to weave this through here. And one way that I do it is I'll just take, maybe the first inch or two, start coaching it through the valve body here. And since there's some threading, it can get tricky. So be patient. Here it comes, okay? Now, when it comes through like this, I'm going to take these two fingers, and as I tighten this in here, I'm going to kind of coach it along with it, because I don't want to twist that inside, okay? I'm finger tightening this nut right here. Okay, now I'm going to take my air reverse switch. You don't need to put any thread tape on here. If you want to use thread locker, you can use a very small amount, and that's about it right there. This is 75-pound torque thread locker. That means I need 75 pounds torque to break it loose. I can take this and turn it around, and when it gets snug, I can either leave it, but I want it to be a little bit tighter. I want it to be a little bit tighter, so I'm going to take my wrench here, and we're going to bring this around, get over here, and snug it down. And I bring my air reverse switch even with my tool, right there. Take a look at it. It's nice and straight. Air reverse switch is coming back and forth. Nice and snug. That's what I want. Because if you use the proper torque and you have a good feeling for it, you don't need the thread locker, but if you're unsure, you can use it. And I'm good to go here. Okay, now let's put our new weighted tube assembly on. Okay, this all looks good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open up the CT200, take out the cone, pull out my weighted tube, get my new washer. I'll place the washer here, right there. These threads look good. Really don't need to be cleaned. Sometimes a wire brush is needed to clean those threads. This will have thread tape, liquid thread tape on it when you buy it, so you don't need to put any thread tape on there. And please do not use any thread locker on this part. It's not necessary. Okay, now I'm going to take that, get my box end wrench, 10 millimeter, slide that on there. I'm just going to Tighten this down. It's important to make sure that when we notice those threads at the beginning, that they were clean and there was no obstruction, because we want this to tighten down nice and even, just like that. Okay, now that I've got this off, I've noticed that I have extra inner liquid tube poking out from the weighted tube. This is crucial that this is trimmed properly. Take a single edge razor blade, either in a holder, I like using this holder, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the blade and I'm going to trim it even, just like that. Now make sure that you use a sharp blade or knife. If you use a pair of scissors, you can crimp and close that tube and it won't work for you. Okay, everything's tight here, everything's looking good. I'm going to grab my cone, put the cone on, got my washer on. Okay, we've made some repairs here. Let's see what's going on. I've replaced my weighted tube assembly, my cone, the CT200 replacement kit. I've replaced the inner liquid tube. That was a major problem. CT600. Okay, now let's put some air to this and see if we can get some liquid out. Okay, air reverse switch is working good. Got it straight up. All right, we're good to go. This little guy's got a lot of life left in it. So let's go to work. My name's Dennis.